Today we're checking out the Beast Broadhead by Bowmar Archery. This is a 2-inch cut, 2-blade mechanical broadhead that utilizes a spring system to both deploy the broadhead at over 940 miles an hour according to the package, and allows the broadhead to contract and re-expand when it hits bone. So when it hits bone, it'll contract, and then the spring will force it to re-expand in the soft tissue. Potentially, or according to the package, deepening penetration. Now, unfortunately, I have no way to test penetration because the only real way to do that is on animals, and you're not going to get an animal to stand exactly the same way over and over again to really consistently test penetration. Also, I live in Illinois. I don't have the opportunity to go out and shoot a bunch of animals year-round, unfortunately. So, we can't really test that, but it also says that it is the sharpest mechanical broadhead out of the package. And in my testing, I test sharpness out of the package, and in a way that you can compare it to every other broadhead I've ever tested. The last claim that really sticks out to me is a claim that Mr. Bowmar has made himself, and it's that these broadheads are a greater value than most other broadheads because you can shoot twice as many animals with the same broadhead. So that's a claim for durability. We do durability testing here. Now, I understand you're not going to find an animal in the wild that's got metal plates, or at least I hope not. If so, they're getting smart and we have a problem. What I try to do with my durability testing is push it to the extremes, because if it can survive an extreme, it should be able to survive going through an animal, no problem. Also, if you shoot an arrow and you pass through an animal and your broadhead hits rocks, it hits some of that sandy, rocky soil you guys have down south, it goes into a tree root or a tree limb or a tree, period, you could run into some durability issues. Now, obviously, it's already been through the animal. It's done its job. But if we're talking reusability, and that's really the claim we're making here, I think it's important that it be able to live through that kind of torture as well. So these broadheads are $59.99 for a 2-pack, and it also comes with a practice head.
I think we should just go, relax in the city, have a drink.
Alright, so we're going to look at the graph for the Beast now. Basically ignore from here forward. I still had it recording as I pulled the broadhead back up through the leather. So what we're looking at is here. This is as the tip started to penetrate the leather. At this point is where the blade's deployed. And you're looking at 40.83 foot-pounds to get the blades to deploy. Now the nice thing is the blades are mechanically driven, they're spring driven, so once they pop, they continue to pop. They don't use more, or they propel themselves. They don't use more energy to continue to pop. So you see that drop, and then this is where the blades started to penetrate again, and they sliced. For some reason there was a little drop there. I'm not sure what that is, but then they really start to penetrate, and they get down to cutting through the leather. Now, one thing that's really interesting is I didn't get the full 2-inch cut on that leather. The Beast blades are meant to close when they come in contact with heavy bone, and going through this leather, those Beast blades did start to close. So let's see here, scroll all the way down. You're at 92.90 foot-pounds of energy to penetrate completely through the leather. Right there is your entry on leather. You're looking at just over 1.5 inches. Okay, so as you guys saw, the broadhead wasn't even all the way open on the leather when it went through. On the gel itself, it looks like maybe the right blade was open all the way, but the left was not. And you can kind of see that in the wound channel. If you look, you can see the black arrow. You see how there's kind of a line, like a faded almost line up top? That is the wound channel. So here's that right blade, and then it collapses, and you can see the top of the wound channel there. When I'm talking about wound channels in videos, that's what I'm looking at. Is I call them ghost lines. They're very thin, very faded right there. You can see it. And then if I tilt this gel up, you can kind of see it there on the underneath side as well. And then if you look down here, you can kind of see it there. That's the left blade. And then you see the bottom of the wound channel. So what we're seeing here is that the broadhead wasn't open when it went into the leather. The right blade was all the way deployed when it hit the gel, But the gel is dense enough that it collapsed everything back down and allowed the broadhead to penetrate all the way down here in a collapsed manner. Now, you can't judge the book by the cover because gel is at least or at pretty close to 3 times more dense than internals of an animal. So just because it stayed closed in the gel doesn't mean it would stay closed in an animal. Here's your entry hole from the beast on that metal. And that's what the beast looks like after going through the metal. We lost one blade, and you can just see how eaten up the other side is. So this is the part of the video where I do a lot of talking, but it's really important that you watch this part so you can understand what I'm looking at these tests, because what they show isn't the whole story. So right out of the package, the Beast Broadhead was a 175. Now that's a very sharp broadhead, and I would expect nothing less out of the German Lutz blades that they use. However, it is claimed that this is the sharpest mechanical broadhead on the market. I have tested sharper mechanical broadheads. After that, we did some energy testing, and basically the energy testing is just looking at how much energy it's taking for the broadhead to, in a mechanical, pop or open, and then penetrate through the leather, and then a fixed blade just penetrate through the leather. Now what I saw from the Beast is very typical of what I see of any 2-blade 2-inch mech. About 40 foot-pounds to get the blades to pop, and then about 90 foot-pounds to get it to push through the leather. What you need to understand about that test is that energy is not equivalent to the same amount of energy it's going to take to get the broadhead to both pop and penetrate when you're shooting it through a bow. The speed helps and is going to reduce the amount of energy. So the whole point of that test is a consistent way to compare one broadhead to another in energy usage, and to understand that if broadhead A uses 90 pounds to penetrate in that test and broadhead B uses 70 pounds to penetrate in that test, broadhead B is still going to use less energy shooting through an animal than broadhead A. So although those numbers aren't accurate to what you're going to see on the animal, what you are going to learn from that test is which broadhead uses more energy overall. And that's not going to change no matter how fast that broadhead is moving. After that, we shot it through the ballistics gel. I'd also like to mention in that energy test, I didn't get a full 2-inch cut out of this broadhead, and it is made to close and contract when it hits bone, and that's what it did in that leather. Leather is not bone, but there was enough energy that made those blades contract. So when I shot it through gel, I also didn't get a full 2-inch cut on the outside on the leather in front of the gel, which was odd to me. And then if you look at the wound channel, the bottom blade or the left blade wasn't fully deployed. The right blade was when it entered the gel, and then that gel is dense enough that it compressed it down. Now again, gel is more dense than the internal of an animal, so I'm not surprised to see the gel compressed this broadhead. However, you have to understand that the reason I use gel is because it's a consistent medium. So when I shoot this broadhead and a different broadhead into it, they're going into the same material. There's no differences that are going to allow one broadhead to shine versus another. I also would like to point out, even though the blade or the broadhead was contracted, that's still more than enough to be a lethal wound channel in an animal. If for some crazy reason this stayed contracted through an animal, it'll still kill it. After that, we did the durability testing, and the durability testing is new in this year, and that I switched to 22 gauge weld steel. I was using 22 gauge aluminum last year, and I just didn't feel like it was really strong enough to truly test durability of broadheads. Now I fully understand, deer are not wearing steel plates. If deer start wearing steel plates, we have a big problem, because that means they're getting intelligent, and before long we're going to be war, not hunting. The whole point of this test is that if it can handle this extreme of this metal, it should be able to handle an animal with no problem. Also, if you shoot through an animal and pass through and you hit a rock, or you're down south and you hit some of that sandy, rocky soil, or even like Oklahoma area's got some of that crappy soil, if you stick it in a tree root, if you stick it in a tree, that's going to be rough on the broadhead. I think that test really emulates that level of roughness. So when I get the Beast and I shoot it through there and it rips off one blade and completely mars another blade, the claim that it's twice the value because you can shoot twice as many animals is completely moot to me. I think that's a BS claim. So after we did that, we did edge retention on the one blade left, and it scored 1,000, which tells me exactly what I can physically see, and that's the blades got ripped to shreds in that metal. That's a huge jump, but I expect to see those bigger jumps this year because I am using much more tough material in my durability testing. I don't think it's worth the money. It didn't fare very well in most of my testing. Now, I'm sure it'll kill animals. There's no doubt in my mind. I mean, Bomar himself has killed a multitude of animals with this, and I'm sure many others have as well. I just don't think it's worth that $60 price tag for 2 broadheads when there's other heads in the same price range that do better, or where you can get more bang for your buck by getting 3 heads for that $60 or 3 heads $40. So this one's a no for me, but maybe this one's for you. If you've had good experiences with it, drop it in the comments and let me know. If you've had bad experiences, I'd love to hear those too. As always, thanks for watching. I will catch you on the next one. Peace.